Gasparini, and welcome to this segment of Penn Voice. I am joined today by Warren Dale, who is the founder of the Peninsula Conflict Resolution Center. Warren, welcome.
Thank you.
Today we're going to talk about something that's unique that's happening in Redwood City, and you're sort of calling it the Redwood City Conversations.
Right. The first thing is I'm one of the co-founders of Peninsula Conflict Resolution Center.
Thank you for correcting me.
Yes. But it is good to take credit for everything good that happens within 125 miles.
I tried to do that when I was on the council. If you liked it, it was
Yes,
me, and if you didn't, it was one of my colleagues.
And that's a bit about Redwood City Conversations, because when people come together, good things happen. When they are able to talk together and share not only what their concerns are, but also what their hopes are, we also elicit and access ideas that can benefit all of us.
So why now? Why bring everybody together to all of a sudden start talking?
That's a really excellent question. It is. Redwood City has had a long history with some form of civic engagement.
Correct.
Started with neighborhood boards, and then became the Peninsula Conflict Resolution Center when it extended north. Jim Smith, the previous city manager, or the city manager a number of years ago, brought in us to conduct trainings for neighborhood associations.
Right. I was part of our neighborhood association.
Okay. Later we were brought in to train mid-level managers in terms of conflict resolution and facilitation. But then we really started it when we had a World Cafe through Redwood City 2000 at that time.
Right.
And what came out of that was a desire to revitalize downtown. And that corresponded with what the city council was looking at. And so instead of sort of coming up with an idea that was presented maybe more in the tell and sell format, it was two groups of people, the community and the city council, walking side by side and collaborating together to create what we now have as a wonderful downtown.
Right, and you know, I remember those conversations back in the late 90s about with Redwood City 2000, and it was interesting because it was sort of the unusual suspects that came together to talk about the downtown.
Absolutely.
Nonprofit organizations.
That's right.
Well, what did they have an interest in the downtown for? Or businesses that were located opposite side of the town in Redwood City. Community residents that lived up on the hill, not even close to the downtown. Transportation experts. It was interesting to bring all of these folks together. So I gather this is continuing, and it's now just getting more sophisticated and a little bit more organized in what your outcomes are to be.
Some of the people a few years ago invited a number of us, and Barbara Pierce was one of those when she was on the council, but also a number of city employees to go through what was called the Peter Block School of Managing.
Okay.
And there we learned more about collaboration. And so, again, we began to integrate those experiences. So today, we recognize that the mayor and the vice mayor thought that we had gotten a bit away from some of our more collaborative civic engagement.
Okay.
There were discussions, but maybe more emanating out of the concern area. And it became more, I don't want to say polarized, but people began to feel more distant from each other.
And they were project-based conversations, right?
Sure.
So that's when we came together to talk. When there was a project that you were either for or against or talking about. It wasn't about the proactive, what do you want to vision, right? It was come and tell us what you think about this one particular thing.
Right.
So it's kind of taking a step back and saying, let's look at the big picture.
And Mayor John started it, or sort of reopened it, if you will, with the town hall idea. Got a lot of input. Well, this is a next step in that. It's not input, it's collaboration.
Okay.
It's looking at what we love about Redwood City, and most people then, when they've established or verified what they love about Redwood City, are really interested in their hearts in replicating that. And so the World Cafe model puts them into groups of people where they can not only get acquainted more so with their people, that's one of our goals, with their community, but also to generate ideas of concerns, and then also their hopes for Redwood City. And out of that, then, we design the next phase of the conversations.
Okay, so let's break it down physically. You invite people via programs like this and through next door applications and through any outreach method that you can to say, hey, come and sign up for one of these 3 dates that we have scheduled in this place. And you physically show up, and then you do what?
Okay, so the first one is going to be a kickoff. We had scheduled the first one for the debate.
I was signed up.
Yes, and while we were hearing what we were hearing from people, and that's our MO, is to listen to people, they were saying that they wanted to also see the presidential debates. And so we canceled that meeting and started the kickoff with what is a post-it kickoff on October 22nd at the Red Morton Park. We're going to have games for kids. We're going to have some breakfast food and stuff. People will just post their ideas in the categories of what do they like about Redwood City, what are their concerns, what are their hopes. It's just to kick us off. But it will give us valuable information.
What themes that are coming out of the community.
That's right. And then we hope that they'll go to the circus or go over to the soccer fields or do something else with their family that continues the theme of being together as a community. Then the second date is November 12th. And that's where we hold what we call the World Cafe model of Redwood City Conversations. This is where people will come in and sit at different tables, about 8 to a table. And we want them to be able to facilitate themselves. One of the things with Peninsula Conflict Resolution Center is not only providing skilled facilitators, which we'll have there, but also helping people learn the skills themselves. And so at each table will be a talking stick. And they can make use of the talking stick to say, you know, it's now your turn to talk. But one of the guidelines that we'd ask is to be a good stewardship of time. So that I notice that when I'm talking more, that means other people at the table are talking less. When I talk briefly, but make my point or bring up my idea, I can then listen to others. And so one of the ground rules is to speak in a way that invites people to listen to you. Another way is to be a good stewardship of time. Another one is to listen for people's meaning. And then finally, of course, we want to generate the ideas that come out of them, again, in the areas of concern, hope, love of Redwood City, but also to access their wisdom in terms of solutions, and then to build the next set of conversations based upon what comes out of those three meetings.
So how are you going to then sort of, will there be a note taker?
Yes.
So and then how do you keep the diversity around the 7? So I don't bring my 7 best friends and sit them together, and we sit together.
Our Peninsula Sunrise Rotary Club is going to be signing people into the, and they will assign people to different tables. We're inviting them to, yes, if you feel the need to be with somebody at a certain table, it's okay. We don't want to honor that. But where possible, we want diversity. So we will have interpreters, Spanish interpreters around at different tables. The facilitators will be roving so that they can help out, but then step back and again, allow the table to facilitate itself. So they will go to a table, we'll ask them to introduce themselves. Then we'll ask them the first question is, what do you love about Redwood City? And we will record those. And then we will have a report out with people sharing it with the whole group.
Oh, great.
And then we'll post that up on the wall so that everybody can see that. Oh, there is one other thing. When they first come in, we'll have a map of the city and surrounding areas and have people put pins in where they live so that we can get a sense of what the diversity is in our, both in community living as well as ethnically. So we can have an idea that everybody's there and participating.
So Warren, we have just about a minute left. Finish this sentence for me. Redwood City Conversations will be successful if we
come to the Redwood City Conversations, share your hopes, your concerns, your ideas, and continue to participate in the next phase of meetings.
And Redwood City Conversations is successful because we learned
accessing the wisdom from the people.
That's awesome. Thank you. Well, I invite you to come back once you've had your first World Cafe, your first Redwood City Conversation. Let's have you come back and talk about what you learned, something that you didn't expect happen, and what were some of the findings that will then carry you on to the next set of conversations.
Absolutely.
Is that a deal?
That's a deal. Thank you so much.
Thanks for coming on Penn Voice this time, and I will see you at those Redwood City Conversations.
Absolutely.
And we'll see all of you next time on Penn Voice.